Hi, it's Jordantine1, and in this video I'm really happy to share with you the pattern for my new Loomigurumi angels. So I think they turned out super sweet, and the one I'm showing you in the video today is this one here in the center. But you can see I did 3 different hair colors and 3 different dress colors. And this one I did the gold wings, and the other one I stuck with the white. So I think they all turned out really cute, and I think they're a great addition for this time of year, or really for all year round. To make your angel, you're going to need a hook of some sort. So I'm going to be using the Rainbow Loom metal hook, and then you're going to need a couple of twist ties. This is optional, but I'm using 2 twist ties, at least the inside metal part, for the arms to make them posable. And then I have an additional twist tie that I'm going to be using to help me start my magic ring. And then you're going to need 2 beads, or you could use rubber bands if you don't have beads, for the eyes. And then I have a few clips. I'm going to be using one as a stitch marker, and then the other one at certain times within the tutorial. And then as far as my band counts go, I'm going to use 46 yellow, and that's going to be to make the halo. I'm using 133 mango bands, and these are all Rainbow Loom bands, and that is going to be my hair color. So of course if you wanted blonde or brown hair or black, you could change that. And then I have 43 skin tone, and these actually came out of the camouflage pack. I used 298 purple, and that's for the dress color. And then I have 52 white that are used for the star stitch pattern on the bottom of the dress. And I have a separate tutorial for the wings, but for those I used 129 white for the wings, and then also to attach the wings. The first thing that we'll make are the arms, and for that you're going to start with a magic ring of 4. So I have 5 skin tone bands. And I will be using a twist tie just to help me get the magic ring started, and then I have a clip as my stitch marker. So if you are using that twist tie, and this is optional, you just want to put it right next to your hook, and then you're going to triple your first band. So on, twist, back on, twist, and back on, and then you'll have your 3 loops. So just bend that twist tie in half, and that's just going to help you hold those 3 loops together and give you something to grab onto. So now you should have 4 bands left. You're going to pull through, back on, one through the other, back through from the front, through those same loops, pull through your second band, back on. You'll have 3 loops, one through the other 2, back through, and then once more, and then you can remove your twist tie and add your clip or stitch marker to the band that's on your hook. And this is a rather small magic ring, so you want to do the best you can to even these bands out around the circle. In row 2, you need 4 of your skin tone bands, so we're just going to build up this next row. So as I said, it is a small magic ring, so it's kind of a long stretch to make it over to your first stitch. And a stitch is this little sideways V on the outside edge of your magic ring. So you want to just go from front to back under those 2 loops, pull through your first band, back on, one through the other 2, and then we're just going to work our way around into the next stitch. It's just going to be 1 in each. So there's the second. This clip is sort of getting in the way here. Third. And then where your clip is, that's going to be your last stitch. And then you're just going to move your stitch marker in rows 3 through 7, you're going to need 4 bands for each row. We're doing 1 single crochet in each stitch, and you're going to have whatever color you want your dress to be. So here's the little hand that we've been working on, and this is a really small area that we're working with since we have such a small magic ring. So if you ever feel like you're having trouble seeing the stitches, just sort of spread open this circle so you can get a better view. So you can see that we've already gone through this one. I know it's kind of hard, it stretches apart when you have the small magic ring. So we know we're going over to this next stitch. So I'm going under these 2 loops. And we are going to pull through everything. We're going to do a slip stitch, so through this stitch and through the other one, since we are changing colors, one through the other, and then under the next one here, and then the next, and then again where your clip is. I'm just going to take this off. And then I'm going to add my clip back on. And now in this next row, I am just going to show you here, we did do a slip stitch, and that creates what I consider a false stitch. So it may look like this first little purple here is the stitch that we need to go under right here, but it actually is not. It's this next one, the bigger one, that's the true stitch. So just make sure you're going under that. That's going to be the first one in the next row. And then 2. And the third one. Again, if you're having trouble seeing these, just spread those stitches apart. And then finally here, where the clip is our 4th. Gonna move my clip. So you're just going to continue on doing that same pattern for the next 3 rows. So you can pause your video and do that now, and I will meet you back here in a minute. Now I've completed my first arm, so I'm going to leave a clip on the end just so it doesn't start to come apart. And what you're going to do is go back and repeat these steps one more time to make your second arm. So I'm not going to film this, but I will add the time to go back to in the tutorial if you feel like you need to follow along with the steps again. Next we're going to make the head and the body. So it's all going to be one piece, and we're starting from the top of the head. So you'll begin with your hair color, and you need a total of 21 bands. So we're going to begin with a magic ring of 5, so there's 6 bands for that. And then I have the rest of the bands in piles of 3, because on each stitch we're going to be adding an additional 3 bands that's going to be for the hair. So normally I use a twist tie to help me get the magic ring started, but I'm not going to do that just so you can get a better view of what I'm doing. I don't want the twist tie to be in the way, but you can certainly use one. So I'm taking my first band and I'm tripling this on my hook, so I have the 3 loops. And then I'm going to take my first pile of 3 and I'm just going to put these on the hook. So they're just going to sit here if they stay on. I'm taking my first band, it's going to go through these 3 loose loops, so they're going to be in between where your fingers are and where your hook is. I know it's a little bit tricky. And then you're going to slide it through this tripled band, get the other end back on your hook, and then one through the other. So that's just going to link those in place. And then you're going back through your tripled band. You're going to do the next one same way. Take your 3 bands, set them on your hook. Take your next band of your magic ring. So just slide those on and just sort of keep them in between. this end comes through the tripled band, not through the one on the base, just through the tripled band. Back on your hook, you have your 3 loops, one through the other 2. Again, back through the tripled band, and you can pull these down just so you don't get confused. Next 3 loops, just sit on. This comes through there, get those to go behind, through the tripled band, back on, one through the other 2. Move those over. We have 2 more sets here. So lay the bands on. This comes through, back on, 3 loops, one through the other 2. Slide that over, and then back through once more. Lay on your 3, and this is going to come through, back on, one through the other 2. So it's going to look like a big crazy thing when you're done. I'm going to put my clip on, and you're going to see all your loops hanging out of the middle. So if yours looks like this, you did it correctly. In row 2, you're going to need 10 bands. We're doing an increase in every stitch. So here's what we've made so far, and you may need to stretch this out a little bit to get a better view of your stitches. It's kind of pulling a little bit just because of our extra loops, but you should be able to count 5 stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the last one on your hook is 5. So you're just going under this first stitch, and you're doing an increase, so you have 2 in each stitch. So just like you've been doing, you're going to pull through 1, and then back through the same one for a second. Into the next stitch we have 2. So there's 1, 2, and I feel like this clip keeps getting in my way. Again, if you're having a hard time seeing, just spread this apart. So here's my 3rd, and then my 4th. And if you wanted to, you could put clips on these loose bands that are hanging if you feel like they're getting in your way, because sometimes they do get in your way. You can use a twist tie and sort of just gather them all up to get them out of the way, or you can put clips on the sections. And then here's my last one where the clip is. So there's 1 and 2. So let me just move my clip. And then again, just take a second and kind of spread this out again. In row 3, you'll need 15 bands. We're doing an increase in every other stitch, so it's a 1, 2, 1, 2 pattern. And we are going to start to do some of the skin tone color. So I'm going to my next stitch over here, and this is going to get a single, and it's going to be the hair color. And then in the next stitch it's getting an increase. So the first one is the hair color, and then back through that same stitch the second one's going to be your skin color. So you're going to pull through everything to do a slip stitch, back on just your 2 skin tone loops, one through the other. And then in the next one, we have a skin tone, just a single. The next one gets an increase. So you're going to start with a skin tone, and then back through the same one, and again a slip stitch through everything, and then just your 2 hair color. And then for the rest of the row it's pretty easy because we're not having to change color. So single, and then an increase, and single, and an increase. And again, you can see here when I was pulling this through, I was grabbing some pieces of this extra hair. So again, that's why you have to sort of keep it out of the way, and as I said, if you want, you can tie it off a little bit. So then I have a second one, and then 2 stitches left, so a single, and then finally an increase where my clip is. In row 4, you're going to need 26 of your hair color and then 4 of your skin tone. So what's going to happen in this row is we're going to tack down all of our wild hair here, and then we're going to add our next layer of the hair. So it can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to try and go slow and explain each step. So here's where we left off, and you can see we have 2 of your hair color stitches left. So I'm going to go in the first one. This is where I'm going to pick up 3 of the rings here. So if you look here where your tan is or where your skin tone is, you should have 3 that look like they would naturally go over to the left, and then there's 3 that would go over to the right. So I'm just going to take my hook and go through those 3 that are going to come over to the right here. And then I'm going to have to pick up the next 3, and they're going to just go right on the hook. And then here's my band that's going to actually do the stitch. So it's going to go through all of those loops, through the stitch, back on. So now they're all caught in there. Should have 6 loops caught in the middle, and 1 through the other 2. And then I'm going over to my next stitch, again same hair color. Here starts our tan for the face, so that's going to go through the stitch, through the one on your hook, back on, doing that slip stitch, 1 through the other. Now we're going to be dealing with some false stitches because of doing those slip stitches. So you can see that this first tan here goes more straight up than across. That is not a true stitch. That is the false stitch. So ignore that. Go into the next one here. You have your skin tone, just a regular single crochet. Next, same thing. And the next one. And again, we're dealing with a false stitch since we did change color here. So ignore this first little half stitch, go into the next one. It's going to be your hair color. So here's where we're picking up the other 3 loops to have the hair that swoops to the other side. So go through those 3 loops, take your next 3 loops, add them on, take your band. So you're going to go through those 6 loops under the stitch. We're changing color, so through the tan. Sometimes I say skin tone, sometimes I say tan. 2 loops on, 1 through the other. So now if you look here, you should have your 3 loops attached to this side, 3 loops attached to that side, and then our new sets of 3 on either side. So I hope everyone is getting that okay. I know it's tricky. In the next one here, what we're going to do is pick up one strand of hair and add one strand of hair every time. So they're in sets of 3, so you're going to have to separate them out. So whatever you think is the nicest look, you don't want to get them tangled. So I'm going to go through one loop of hair, and I'm going to add one loop of hair, and then with my next band I'm going to pull through those 2 loops through the stitch, one through the other, and then moving over to the next stitch. And again, as you're adding these loops, if you find it easier to put a clip on them or a twist tie or something to get them out of your way, you can certainly do that. So now we have our next one here. We're going to add a loop, and then this is pulling through, back on, next through the stitch, and through the hair loop, add a loop, so now you can see we have our first 3 bands attached. We're going to just keep repeating that. So into the next stitch we have our next set of 3. So grab a loop from there, just one, add a loop, and next add the next loop, add a loop, so I think once you understand how to do it, it's not as difficult. You can sort of get a rhythm going. So we're adding the one that's already on, and whoops, I almost just pulled that through. Adding our next loop, then through, and then we should have one more set here of loose ones that are coming from the top. So going through, pick one of them up, add your hair, coming through, and into the next one, pick up a loop, add your next, and then you should have one more stitch left. It's where your clip is. So you go under that and just keep these 3 loops that we started with, get them out of the way. You should have one more loose loop coming from the top. Add your next one, through, and through. So if you made it past this row, give yourself a pat on the back, and we're going to move this stitch marker or clip, and here's what it looks like. So now we've managed this top row to get all of those pinned down, and we've added our next row. So these are just going to hang out for a while till we do the next couple rows. So again, if you want to get them out of the way, tie them off, you can certainly do that. In row 5, you're going to need 6 skin tone and 9 of your hair color. So we will be adding the eyes on the 2nd and 4th stitches, and it's up to you whether you want to add the eyes now within the row, the way I'm going to show you, or if maybe you want to add the eyes later. So I'll show you the difference. In this one I added the eyes within the row. I think they're spaced just a little bit farther apart, and you can see, I don't know if you can tell, the bands are coming up through in a more vertical direction. If you were to add the bands later, or add the eyes later I should say, the eyes turn out more like this, you can see that they're just a little bit closer together, and you can see that skin tone band is going horizontally. So it is a little bit of a different look. I actually almost prefer this look, but I find it much easier to add the beads within the row. So it's up to you. I'm going to show it this way. So we're going to begin with a slip stitch since we're changing color. We actually have one more of our hair color to go through. It may look a little bit small because it's being pulled because I have these extra loops on, but that is a true stitch, this last hair color one. We're going to pull through everything, back on, one through the other. And then this next one here is the false stitch. We're ignoring that, the skin tone. Going into the next one. Here's where I'm going to do my first eye. Pull through, back on, just like the regular way, one through the other. And then in the next stitch, it's a single with your skin tone. And then I'm doing the next eye. And then one more here of your skin tone, going underneath a stitch that's skin tone. And then we did change color here, so you're ignoring this first one. Going to the next, and we're doing a slip stitch in this row through everything. Again, just ignore all these hair loops. You can pull them back with your hands. And now we have 8 more of our hair color. So again, just keep these loops out of the way. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you should have 1 stitch left. It's going to change to your skin tone, so do your slip stitch and move your clip. In row 6, you're going to need 5 skin tone and 10 hair color. So where we're starting, it was a slip stitch in the previous row, so ignore the first, go into the second. You can see that this stitch is stretched out just a little bit because I had the eye on there, and that's okay. So we have a skin tone, and we're keeping the same color, so it's just a regular. And then you can see in the next one, our stitch is pulled a little bit tighter, again, because of that eyeball on there. So that's my second one. I have 2 more. So that's 1. And again, you can see this is being pulled a little bit tight here. It's a little bit small. And then I have 1 more tan stitch, but I am going to change my band color, so it's pulling through everything. Again, we changed color on the previous row, ignore this first one. We're going to do 9 more here of the orange, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then ignoring this first little tan, go under your last stitch where your clip is, and we are doing a slip stitch. In row 7, I'm going to be using 35 of the hair color and 4 skin tone bands. So we are going to add our next layer of hair. It's going to be our last time we're having to do this. And on my previous ones, I only did 1 row of hair at the bottom here. You can see how it looks. It's kind of sparse. So I decided to make it a little bit fuller this time. Instead of using just 1 single band, I'm using 2 in each of the center rows, and then I'm still sticking with the 3 on the ends. So we're starting with our 3 tan, and we don't have to change color just yet. So there's 1, 2, 3. And then you have 1 skin tone stitch left, so you're going under that. We're going to grab these 3 loops. I'm going to pick up my next 3 loops. I have my band. It's going to pull through everything, including the one at the base of the hook since we're changing colors, one through the other. And now in the next stitch over, we did change colors on the previous row. Ignore the first, go into the next, and I have just 1 loop to pick up, but as I said, I'm going to be adding 2. You could even add more than that if you want. It just depends on how full you want the hair to be in the back at the bottom. So my 2 loops, and I'm pulling through. Going to continue doing that the rest of the way around here. So I'm picking up a loop, putting on the next loops, so I think when you first start this, it's probably the most difficult. I think it's hard to get that magic ring started, and then you're adding loops on top of it. So I think once you get the larger section built, it becomes a little bit easier to manage. The bands get spread out a little bit more. So we're working our way around here, not too many more to do. And we have our last stitch, that's our hair color. You're going to pick up these last 3 loops, add your next 3 loops, pull through everything, and then where your clip is going to be your last stitch. So ignore this little one here. And we are going to do a slip stitch. In row 8, I'm going to start to do some decreases. So I have 3 skin tone bands, 2 to start and 1 to finish, and then 7 hair color. So I have a clip everywhere we're doing a decrease, and the pattern is basically decrease every other, except for the start. I didn't want to do any decreases on the face, so I have just the 2 singles. So we are going to actually have to skip a stitch towards the end just to get the stitch count to work out, to get it down from 15 to 10. So we have our 2 singles to start. And then we're doing a decrease in the next 2 stitches. And the way I'm doing the decreases on this row is I'm going to go through the stitch. So I have my skin color, and the next little one here we're ignoring. That's not a true stitch. So I'm pulling back and I'm going into that next stitch. So I actually have one of each color on my hook right now. I have my hair color band. It's going to pull through both of those stitches, back on. Actually, this is changing color, so let me just take that right off. I'm going to pull through everything and then go back on. Sorry about that. One through the other. And then in the next one it's a single. We have a decrease, so through the first stitch, pull back, and through the second stitch. And sometimes this is hard to pull through, so just take your time. You might have to use your fingers, then through. And then the next one is a single. And you do have to be careful about these loops from the hair. Again, just try and hold these back. We have a decrease. And a single. We have our last decrease. And then you're actually going to have 2 stitches left. You're going to have a hair color stitch, next one's a false stitch, and then your actual stitch. So since I decided not to do the decrease to start, we actually missed out on a decrease. So what I'm going to do is just skip a stitch here. So we're technically, it may look like you're skipping 2, but you're technically only skipping the 1. You're going over here to where your clip is and do a slip stitch. In row 9, you can see that we're switching to our dress color. So you're going to need a total of 10 bands, and we're going to do a decrease every other time. So this decrease is going to be a little bit different than our last decrease. This one's going to be a little bit softer. So under your first stitch we have a single. We'll do a slip stitch since we're changing color. And then in the next stitch we're going to do one. It comes through back on, but this time only going through that first loop. So you have 2 loops left on your hook. Ignore this little part here, go into the next stitch. We're going to pull through back on, so you have 4 loops and 1 through the other 3. Next we have a single. And then our next decrease. So just through the first loop, leave it on your hook. Next one pulls through all. Next one is a single, and then a decrease. So there's 1, through all, and then you should have one left here where your clip is, and that's going to just be a single. So we'll just move this. In row 10, you're going to need 14 bands. We're doing an increase in every stitch, and we are going to include the arms. So I'm going to put the arms on the 2nd and 3rd stitches, and then the 10th and 11th stitches. So we're starting here. You're ignoring the first little half stitch, go through your actual stitch. We're not changing colors, so we have 1, and then back through for a 2nd, and here's where we're going to start to pick up the arm. So go through the loop where the clip is, and then go around to the next stitch in line, and you're going to pull through all 3 on the arm, through the stitch on the body, back on, 1 through the other 2. And then I'm moving over to the next stitch. We can actually take this clip off of the arm now. And then you want to just do the best you can to try and find the middle here of the arm. It's kind of tough, and it doesn't have to be exact. Just try and go through the opposite side of where we did the first one. So pull through those loops through that stitch. So you're going to go through the stitch of the arm, and then the stitch of the body, back on, 1 through the other 2. And then you can look about the placement. I think that looks pretty good. And then I have to go back through that same stitch for my increase. And now 2 for all the rest here. And then when we come back around the other side is where we're going to pick up our 2nd arm. And now in the next one we have 2. And it's actually in this stitch where we're going to pick up our 2nd arm. So again, I'm going to go through the loose band and then over to the next stitch. So this is actually my 10th band here. So pull through all of that, 1 through the other, and then I'm moving over to my next stitch. You should have 2 stitches left here. Again, try and go to the opposite side and go through the arm stitch. This is band 11. And then again back through that same stitch. It's number 12. And then you should have 2 bands left. It's going under the last stitch. And what I would recommend right here before you put this last stitch in is the way that the bands lay. There seems to be a gap that forms right here, a bigger gap, and since it's on the front and the middle, what I'm going to suggest is to go through the stitch, but then also go through this purple loop here that comes across the top, and then pull through that and do a single crochet. So that's just going to help to close off any kind of little gap that forms right there. In rows 11 through 14, you're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch, so you'll need 14 bands for each row, and I am going to let you go ahead and do those rows on your own, so you can pause your video now, and I will see you back here shortly. The next thing I'm going to do before I build the body down any further is I'm going to take the 2 wires that I have taken out from the middle of a twist tie, and I'm going to thread these through the arms to be able to pose the arms. So this is optional, but if you want your angel to have like a prayer pose with her hands together, then you will have to add the wires. And you want to try and pick twist ties that have a little bit of a thicker wire. Some of them tend to be really thin and flimsy. I mean, it doesn't really matter, it's just easier to thread if it's a little thicker. So I'm just going to stick this up through, try to get it to go all the way up and into the middle. Come out inside the body here. I think I'm almost there. And then I'm going to just do the same thing for the other arm. So take my other wire and slide it right up through the center. And then on the inside here, you should have your wires coming through, and you want to leave a little bit of space here, so just pull them till they're about down to about even here with where we had left off. And then what I'm going to do is take the two wires and I'm going to twist them together. So you want to do this several times, and you want to get them nice and tight and don't leave any edges sticking up. And then I can push this down until the hands meet, and then if you need to, you can make this wire shorter, so just pull both ends here a little bit. So you would just continue to do that until you can get the hands to meet. And then with the excess wire inside, you're just going to twist those together, and then you can either bend them up, or if you feel like they're very long, you can take a pair of scissors and just trim them. In row 15, you're going to need 21 bands, so we're doing an increase in every other stitch. So you're going to start with your single, then an increase, and then we're just going to keep repeating that pattern. So basically we're working on the waist right now, or the last row was actually probably the waist, because now we're just going to try and get this dress to really flare out. So I think that if you've made it to this point, the rest is fairly easy. We are going to be doing that star stitch pattern across the bottom, so I really don't think it's too complex though. Definitely the hardest part was doing the layers of hair. So we're almost to the end here. And in our last stitch, we're ending on an increase. In row 16, you're going to need 21 bands. It's one single crochet in each stitch, and you can go ahead and do that on your own. In row 17, you'll need 28 bands, and the pattern is 2 singles and an increase repeating. So we're doing our 2 singles to begin. So we have 1, 2, and then we have our first increase, and then I'm just going to repeat that pattern till the end. So we're almost getting down to the end of the tutorial. We just have 2 more rows and then our star stitch row to decorate the bottom of the dress. So I had decided to make the angel wings a separate tutorial in case anyone wanted to make those as like a charm or an ornament or to add to a different project. So I have 2 more sets of my pattern here. Here's my second to last increase. And here's my last set. In row 18, you'll need 28 bands. It's 1 single crochet in each stitch, and I'm going to let you do that on your own, so you can pause and do that now. In row 19, you're going to need 31 bands. So we're doing a pattern of 7 singles followed by an increase. So you can see you can't quite finish the pattern 4 times. It's going to be like 3.5. So you're ending on a single. So we're doing our 7 singles to start. So I'll count the first set with you. So that's 1. Oops, didn't quite make it under both there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then the next one in the 8th stitch, we're going to have our first increase. And then you're just going to continue to repeat that. So the reason that I added this row, instead of just doing the star stitch after the previous row, is because I needed an odd number band count. And the second reason is that when I was creating this, I did just try and do that star stitch after the previous row, and it wound up with 2 of the same colors next to one another. So I didn't like that, so that's why I reworked it and added this layer just to get the spacing correct. So I'm on to my second increase here, and then I'm going to repeat the 7 singles, whoops, and then I have my third increase, and then you should have 4 stitches left. Here's the last one. In row 20, we're going to do our star stitch pattern. This is going to be the very bottom of the dress, and you're going to need a total of 98 bands. So since I'm doing alternating colors, I'm going to need 49 white and 49 purple. So the pattern I have laid out is the pattern I'm going to be following, and I'm only going to do like the first 6 here I have laid out. I'm going to do the first 6 with you. There's going to be 14 in total, so I'll let you do the remaining 8 stars on your own. So I think after I go through all these with you, you'll definitely have the hang of it. So to begin, we're going to go into our next stitch in the line here. We're going to take whatever color you want your first star to be. So I have white. I'm going to pull through everything since I'm changing color and get the other end back on. So I'm just going to leave these 2 loops on. You're going to be gaining a lot of loops on here, 10 in total. So it's going to get full. You're going to your next stitch over, and then I'm going to take my second white, pull through back on, and you can see I'm going to use my fingers to pull these ones that I already did to the base. So that's 4 loops. Over to the next stitch. Now that's 6. Over to the next. That makes 8, and then over to the next makes 10. So as I said, it gets very full, and then we're taking the next band. This one is going to pull through everything on your hook. So it does tend to get hung up. What I recommend is as you're pulling through, if you pull down on the bands, it does open them up, and it does help from getting hung up. I can't guarantee that you won't still get hung up, but it does help a bit. Get the other end back on, and then one more band you're going to pull through both and back on your hook. So you still have the 2 loops remaining. So that's our first star, and now we're going to follow this next pattern for the rest. So the first band in the pattern is always going to go through the eye or the center here. So you're going to go from front to back through that. Take your first band in the pattern. It's going to pull through, and I'm going to pull through everything and get the other end back on. So that's always where your first band is going to go, through the eye. Then the second band is going to go in between what I'm calling the posts of the left side of the star. So if you separate these out where the white bands are, that's where I'm going to push through from front to back. So my second band is going to come through there, back on. You're leaving the loops, remember, until you have 10. So that's 4. Now the third band is going to go through the same stitch that the end of this previous star is in. So this is our third. And then it's going to go through the next 2 unoccupied stitches. So 1 in each. So there's 1, over to the next 2. So that should get us up to 10 bands. And now I'm taking my next band, I'm going to pull through everything on my hook. So again, just do your best to not get hung up there. Get the other end back on. Take the next band, pull through both, and that completes our second star. So there is a tip that I guess I should have said at the beginning, but if you feel like you are struggling when you're pulling the band through, what you can do is use a clip to stick on the end of the band, and that way it's just a little bit more helpful that the band doesn't pull all the way through too far. So I'll show you that on the next one. As a matter of fact, I will just attach it here a while. So if you remember our pattern, we're going through the eye with the first band and do like a slip stitch, pull through everything. The next one is going to go in between the posts. And remember, you're leaving them all on until you have 10. The next one is going through the same stitch that the previous star is occupying, just the end. And then you should have 2 empty stitches, and that's where our last 2 are going to go. So now you should have 10 loops on your hook, and here's what I was talking about when I pull through. If you want, you can add a clip, and that way as you're going through, it just gives you a little extra support that this band doesn't yank all the way through. And then it's a little bit helpful too when you're placing it back on your hook. And then the next one through. So again, I'm going to start my next one here through the eye, through everything, and then in between the posts. And then in the same stitch as the last star, and then the next 2. Again, if you want to, you can utilize a clip. So pull through, get the other end back on, and the next one pulls through. So you will see that this does pull this a little bit tighter, and what I recommend is just sort of stretching it out, because you really don't want it to get tight and gather at the bottom. So I have 2 more I'll do with you. So through the eye, in between the posts, in the last star, and then in the 2 empty ones. Band through everything, add a clip if you want. And then a second one of that same color. And one more time. So through the eye and everything, in between the posts, in the one with the previous color star, we have 2 empty, next band through everything, and one more. And again, you can sort of stretch these out a little bit. So you can pause now and continue around till you get to the start here. And when you've done your last star, I'll show you what to do next to close it off. Now I've made it to the end here. I did my last star, and the last band had gone through where we had first started, where the clip is. So I can take my clip out, and then I have 3 additional white bands that I'm going to do like a little portion of a star and then connect it. So I'm going to go through the eye of the star, and then I'm going to go through the post. So I'm just going to have 4 loops, and then I'm going to go through the eye of the previous star. I'm going to pull through everything, get the other end back on, and then I'm going to pull the one end through the other nice and tight. So you may notice sometimes the one side seems a little bit higher than the other, because naturally as you go around the rows, the one side tends to get longer. So you can sort of just pull on the bands and try and adjust that so it looks relatively even. And then you have your loop here. You just have to hide that. So you just want to go through the middle here of the white. Just going to go all the way through. And then grab the loop and hide that inside. And as I said, you can do some adjusting. You don't want it to be curling under. You want it to be nice and straightened out. And then as far as the hair goes, if it's sticking up here, if it's a little wild, what you can do is adjust that. You can use your hook to go inside and sort of curve this so that the hair wants to lay down. See how I just did that? I went through the loop and then sort of pulled up and then down. And then that'll make your hair lay flatter. You can do that for all of these. And then if you're adding angel wings, that's going to kind of hide the hair anyway. So I have already added the link to the angel wings, but I'll put it up here again, just in case you want to get to it from here. To attach your angel wings, you're going to need maybe like 3 to 5 bands, and you're going to use whatever color your wings are. So you just want to turn her over and then take the wings, however you want them positioned. If you want them curving forward or curving backward, because they are going to curve just a little bit, and it's up to you. Let me see. I think I want them to curve forward. So I'm just going to line this up in the middle, see what I think about the positioning. I think that looks good. And then I'm just going to start in the center here. I'm going to push down through and into the body. Just make sure you're only going through the back layer, and then come up through the next opening. Just pull through and one through the other, and then go down through and just come right up through the next one here. And I'm going to take my next band and come down through one through the other two. And now I need to get this loop to go down inside so I can tie it off. So I'm just going to hold this in my fingers, reach up through, and just grab that and pull down into the center. And then I just need to go through a band or 2 on the inside and take an additional band and make a nice and tight slip knot. So you can see how you think that looks. And if you want to get the wings a little bit more secure, what you can also do is to tack them on either side here. So if you wanted to, you could go a little bit over to the one side and just get this to come down through to the back. you'll have your 2 loops and pull one through the other, make a nice and tight slip knot, and then you would just repeat that on the other side. So it's totally up to you till you get them positioned however you like. You can use as few or as many bands as you need. And then again, nice and tight slip knot. And you can do some adjusting to the arms and the dress to get it however you like it. Now, if you want to, you can add some stuffing. I usually like to at least stuff the head, and then I think this would make a great little tree topper. Obviously not for a huge Christmas tree, but if you had a smaller Christmas tree, this would look really adorable on top. You could also use a battery-operated tea light that you can put inside, and then you could just stand her on top. I think that would look really neat. And if you wanted to, you could stuff this the whole way and then make a base and just attach it. I wouldn't attach it right to where the star stitches are, but maybe to this row above. You could just stitch it around and close that off. To make your halo, you're going to start with a chain of 10. So you're going to triple your first band. So you have 3 loops on your hook, and then you're just going to pull through one at a time. So the 10 bands are including that first tripled band. And as you're pulling through, if you pull down on this section that's growing, it does help your hook to slide through a lot easier. And then what you're going to do is take the end where we started, this tripled band, and you're going to take one end of the band that's on your hook, just slip out one side. I'm going to hold that in my fingers, and I'm going to slip it through the tripled band, get the other end on. So that way this tripled band is sandwiched in the middle. And then I'm going to take one additional band. I'm going to pull through everything, get the other end on, and then do one through the other. So that's just going to close off this circle. In the second row, and this is our only other row, you're going to need a total of 34 bands, and you can see I have them laid out in piles of 2. So what we're going to do is take your hook from the front, you're going to go inside this circle, so you're not going through any of the loops, and then you're going to take your first band, pull through, get the other end back on, and then you want to slide this as close to the start as you can. And you're taking your second band, and that's going to slide through everything back on, and then one band through the other. So that's the pattern we're going to follow. So through the middle, the band comes through, back on. Your second band is going to pull through everything, back on, one through the other. And then you need to just keep sliding this. You don't want it to be so tight that the bands are going over top of one another. You want them to be next to one another, but you just don't want there to be any space in between them. So really that's all there is to it. You're just going to keep repeating this. And it's pretty easy. Just always remember to go in through the front every time. And always remember to slide it over. And to do the one through the other. So it's going to make this really cool, like zigzaggy pattern. If you look on the outer edge, you can see how the loops go up and down through one another. And you'll see that on the front of the halo. So I'm just going to let you go ahead and finish the rest on your own. Once you've completed your last set of bands, you need one additional band to tie this off. So you just need to go under a band or two at the start here. Take your band, pull it through everything, make a nice and tight slip knot, and then you just need to hide this loop. So you're just going to go underneath and pull this into the middle. And then when you attach it, you want to put where the band's connected in the back, and where you slid it under, that can be the bottom. So here's our little angel. Now to attach this, I'm going to use a couple of hair color bands just so it blends in. So as I said, you want the back part here where it connects to be in the back of the head. And so I'm just going to see where I think it looks good as far as the placement goes. And then I'm going to take just 1 or 2 loops on the right side, go through some of this hair since we have nice bands that stick up, and I'm just going to pull through and make a slip knot. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the left side here. Just turn it around. So just go in 1 or 2 bands over here on the right, go through some hair, and I'm going to make another slip knot. And then if you wanted to, you could tie these together, or what I think I'm going to do is take the loops and get them to go underneath just so they're not sticking out. So I'll just pull them under some hair. I'll take my last band here and make a slip knot of that, and then I'm just going to reach up inside here, and I'm just going to pull this loop down into the middle. If I get my hook out of here, I'm caught on something. And then you can do some adjusting. If you think it needs to be tacked down any more than that, you can tack it down really anywhere. It looks like it maybe needs to be tacked a little bit here in the front as well. So it's up to you. I do want it to be sort of not flat against the head, so that way it looks more like a hat. I want it to sort of be sticking up to make it look like a halo that's floating above the head. And then she's done. I hope that everyone loves their Loomigurumi angels as much as I do. They truly are one of my favorite things that I've ever created, and I hope that everyone feels the same way about theirs as well. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that way you can stay up to date when I have my new tutorials uploaded. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well and post pictures and comments there too. Thanks for watching!